16 children. Not one, not two, 16. Hidden, deliberately, systematically, for nearly 2 decades, in the middle of the United States of America. No school records, no medical records, no government footprint of any kind. 16 human beings growing up in complete darkness while the world moved on outside their door. And when law enforcement finally opened that door on June 30th, what they found inside made a man with 44 years of prosecuting the worst crimes Ohio had ever seen say 4 words that should stop you cold. He said he had never seen anything like it. Not in 44 years. Not once. But here is what no one is telling you about this case. That house was not the beginning. There were more properties, more counties, more years, more chances for the system to find these children. And every single time, the system missed them. The real question in this case is not just what happened inside that house. The real question is, how many doors did this happen behind? How many years did it go on? And how many people came close enough to stop it and kept walking? You are watching Darkness of Beneath Crimes. If this is your first time here, subscribe right now, because this channel goes deeper than every other channel covering this case. And what we are about to show you goes places the mainstream coverage has not been willing to go. Stay with me, because this case is about to get much darker before it gets any clearer. June 30th, Hamden, Ohio. Deputies arrived before noon. They had a search warrant. They pulled up to a house on Ohmer Road in Vinton County, a rural county of roughly 13,000 people sitting about 75 miles south of Columbus. Small roads, quiet land, the kind of place where people tend to mind their own business. They expected a routine execution of a search warrant. They expected to collect evidence and leave. What they found inside that house will not leave the people who found it. Not ever. 16 children. Inside a single room. A 12-foot by 12-foot room. A space smaller than most people's home office. Covered in waste. Covered in filth. Covered in the physical evidence of years of deliberate, sustained neglect. The youngest child was 20 months old. The oldest was 18 years old. 18 years on this earth. An entire human life. Spent entirely inside that closed world. And that 18-year-old, when law enforcement encountered them, could not speak coherently. Could not write their own name. Could not perform basic functions that most children learn before the age of 5. 18 years of life. And the outside world had been completely and deliberately erased from them. Let that land for a moment before we move forward. Because that single detail, one child 18 years old unable to write their name, tells you more about the duration and the depth of what happened inside this family than any charge sheet ever will. Vinton County Sheriff Ryan Kane stood in front of cameras after the rescue and chose his words carefully. He said most livestock in that county were kept in better conditions than those children were. Livestock? That was the comparison law enforcement used. And Ohio's Attorney General, when he arrived on scene, described the children as looking, and these are his documented words, almost like feral animals. Those are not dramatic descriptions from people trying to attract attention. Those are the words of experienced law enforcement officers trying to find language adequate enough to describe what they actually saw. 7 of the 16 children were taken to hospitals in Columbus immediately following their removal. 7. Nearly half. 2 of those 7 were in such critical condition they were airlifted by helicopter. 1 child was listed in critical condition upon arrival at the hospital. 1 child. Critical condition. Rescued from their own home. These were not injuries from a single event. What medical professionals documented when they examined these children pointed to something prolonged. Something that had been accumulating for years. Something that predated that house on Ohmer Road by a very long distance. And to understand how this was possible, how 16 children could be hidden from every safety system designed to find them, you have to go back much further than June 30th. Because the story of these 16 children did not begin on Ohmer Road. It began nearly 20 years ago, and the people who hid them had been perfecting that system of concealment across multiple counties, multiple properties, and multiple decades, before anyone ever showed up with a warrant. 4 adults were arrested the morning of June 30th. Gary Siders Jr., 36 years old. His wife, Elizabeth Siders, 33 years old. His father, Gary Siders Sr., 73 years old. His mother, Christina Siders, 66 years old. All 4 charged with 16 counts each of second-degree felony child endangerment. 68 combined felony charges between 4 adults. And in Ohio, second-degree felony child endangerment carries specific statutory language that prosecutors do not use lightly. The words are torture and cruel abuse. That is not a minor charging decision. That is prosecutors communicating in legal language exactly what they believe the evidence will show a jury happened inside that house. All 4 pleaded not guilty. Gary Siders Sr. was the only one released from custody, hospitalized for a serious medical condition. He has since filed for a competency evaluation and is pursuing a possible insanity defense. Elizabeth, Gary Jr., and Christina each sat behind a $300,000 bond. And now here is the detail that most coverage has mentioned exactly once, and then moved past without stopping long enough to let it register. Investigators used a specific word to characterize what they believe occurred inside this family structure. One word. They used the word intrafamily. Officials deployed that term officially to indicate that sexual relations between family members may have occurred within this household. That is not rumor. That is not speculation from outside commentators. That is a documented, official characterization from the investigators working this case directly. And it changes the entire dimension of what those children may have been living through behind that door. She was 15 years old when she got married. 15. On March 31, 2008, Elizabeth stood before a judge in Mason County, West Virginia, and legally became the wife of Gary Siders Jr., who was 18. West Virginia law at that time permitted marriage at any age with parental consent. Elizabeth's parents signed the papers. Her education, as recorded on the marriage certificate, had stopped at the 8th grade. It had stopped at the 9th. 2 teenagers, barely educated, bound together legally by a system that asked no further questions and looked no further into what life inside that home would look like. Over the following 17 years, Elizabeth would give birth to 16 confirmed children. Unconfirmed accounts that investigators have not publicly contradicted, suggest the total number of pregnancies may have been significantly higher, beginning as early as age 13. The only officially confirmed number is 16. 16 children removed from that house. Elizabeth's own brother described her publicly as almost indoctrinated. Her attorney described her in court as crying, exhausted, and focused entirely on the welfare of her children rather than her own release from custody. And this is the question that legal experts and child welfare professionals are now wrestling with openly. Was Elizabeth Siders a perpetrator? Was she a victim? Or was she something far more complicated than either of those labels allows? Here is what is documented. She is 33 years old. She is charged with 16 felony counts. And from the time she was 15, she appears to have lived entirely within this family's closed and controlled world, just like the children she is now charged with failing. Was she a mother who failed her children? Was she a child who was never given the chance to know any different? The legal system will attempt to answer the first question. The second question may never have a clean answer at all. What is not in dispute is what those children experienced. Regardless of how responsibility is ultimately distributed among 4 adults in that household, 16 children spent years inside that room. And that is the center of this case that no legal argument will ever move. But Ohmer Road was not the beginning. It was the end of a trail. Birth records, property records, public documents. They tell a story the family never intended to be read. The Siders family moved at least 5 times across 2 Ohio counties from 2008 onward. 5 different addresses. And at every single address they left behind, investigators and neighbors found the same evidence of what was happening inside those walls. A property in Cheshire, Ohio. A neighbor who remembered the family but asked not to appear on camera recalled seeing what he estimated were about 9 children. He said the family kept mostly to themselves, that the children were occasionally visible outside but mostly stayed indoors. That was around 2020 or 2021. A woman who worked nearby described the condition of that same Cheshire property after the Siders family left. The word she used was absolutely trashed. The man who came in afterward to rehabilitate the home spoke publicly about what he found when he walked through the door. Human feces, animal feces, urine soaked into the structure of the building itself, surfaces that had absorbed years of filth. And then he described the attic. Stop here for a second. The attic was packed with children's clothing, wall to wall, as if someone had been living up there. As if children had been stored in the ceiling of their own home. Children living in an attic. This was not the house on Ohmer Road. This was a previous property. A property they had already left. Which means what investigators found on Ohmer Road was not the beginning of this pattern. It was simply the place where the pattern finally ran out of road. And while all of this was happening behind those closed doors, Gary Siders Jr. was out in the community, driving for a gig delivery service, stopping at local stores, buying scratch-off lottery tickets. He tipped the cashier $10 one time. He walked through ordinary daily life like a man with absolutely nothing to hide. 16 children invisible to every system that should have known they existed. And their father buying scratch tickets at the corner store. Now here is where the story of how they were found becomes the most disturbing detail of all. This investigation did not start because a teacher noticed something. It did not start because a doctor flagged a concern. It did not start because a neighbor called a hotline. It did not start because Child Protective Services conducted a welfare check. Not one of those systems triggered this. Gary Siders Jr. exposed himself. May 23, 2026. He exposed himself to members of the public near the Ohmer Road property. Then again on May 27th. Then May 29th. Then May 31st. For separate incidents. 9 days. That triggered a report. The report triggered a search warrant. Deputies arrived on June 30th expecting to gather evidence on a public indecency misdemeanor charge. They found 16 children instead. Now hold that thought and follow it to its logical end. What if those 9 days had gone differently? What if no one had filed that report? What if law enforcement had not escalated from the public indecency report to a full search warrant? What if they had issued a citation and moved on? How much longer would those children have remained in that room? How many more years would they have grown up in darkness while their father bought scratch tickets down the road? Those children were that close to never being found. That close to spending another year, another 5 years, another decade, in that house without the world knowing they existed. That proximity to permanent invisibility is the detail that should follow you long after this video ends. The investigation that followed did not slow down. It expanded. The Computer Crimes Division of the Ohio Attorney General's office was brought in. Electronic devices seized from the property are now being forensically analyzed. Every hard drive, every phone, Every device found in that house is currently being examined by specialists. Think carefully about what that specific decision means. A computer crimes unit called into a case that investigators have already officially characterized as intrafamily. That combination does not arrive at a random conclusion. Experienced investigators do not request forensic digital analysis without reason. They request it when they have cause to believe that what is on those devices will add charges to the ones already filed. The county is also working to recover birth certificates for all 16 children. As of the most recent documented updates, not all birth certificates have been located. Investigators believe the family made deliberate, sustained efforts over years to minimize their governmental and medical footprint. 16 children. And the legal documentation confirming they ever existed is still being assembled. Vinton County Prosecutor William Archer appeared before county commissioners and requested an additional $20,000 to cover the immediate costs of managing this investigation alone. He told the commissioners directly, "This case has gotten a life of its own." He described it as unprecedented in scope for a county of this size. The state of Ohio separately began pursuing approximately $1 million in additional support to cover the cost of caring for 16 children now placed in therapeutic foster care. For a county with a population of roughly 13,000 people and limited resources, this case has consumed every available thread of the justice system. And Prosecutor Archer's own word for it, in a public meeting on the record, was unprecedented. You are at the center of a case that is still expanding. And this channel will be here every single time a new layer surfaces. If you have not subscribed to Darkness of Beneath Crimes yet, do it right now. Hit subscribe. Hit the like button. Drop a comment below telling me which detail in this case disturbed you most. Because I want to know what you are thinking. And that conversation in the comments is where this community lives. Stay with me, because we are not done yet. All 16 children have now been placed in therapeutic foster care. Vinton County was granted temporary custody of all of them following their removal. But Prosecutor Archer has since told county commissioners something that cuts through all the legal language and lands like a verdict before the trial has even begun. The county is pursuing permanent custody of all 16 children. Not temporary guardianship. Not a supervised reunification pathway. Permanent. Legal. Separation. From every adult who was in that house on June 30th. Understand what that means within the American child welfare system. The stated goal, the default position, the standard that guides nearly every decision made by every family court in this country, is reunification. Courts lean toward it by design. Agencies work toward it by mandate. The entire philosophical framework of Child Protective Services is built on the premise that children belong with their families whenever it is at all possible to make that work safely. Vinton County abandoned that framework within weeks of removing those children. What does that tell you? It tells you that what medical professionals found when they examined those 16 children was so severe, so entrenched, and so clearly the product of years of deliberate harm that no court could responsibly even gesture toward sending them back. An 18-year-old who cannot write their own name. 3 sets of twins among the 16 children. Some just 1 year old, 2 years old, 4 years old. Children who had spent, according to official accounts, most of the past 4 years confined primarily to one room. Children who required emergency medical airlifts on the day they were rescued. These are not children who need a few months of stability and routine. These are children who face years, possibly a lifetime, of working to recover from what was done to them in the only home they ever knew. A former prosecutor with 44 years of experience, who has handled some of Ohio's most serious child abuse cases, said directly when assessing this case, when a county moves to permanent custody that fast, it means only one thing. It had to be a horrible situation. That is a man who has seen everything. And that was his conclusion. There were chances to find them sooner. That is the part of this story that cannot be untold. Records indicate that Child Protective Services in Gallia County, the county where the Siders family lived before moving to Vinton County, had some form of documented contact with this family. The exact nature of that contact has not been fully disclosed. What is documented is what happened immediately afterward. The family moved, one county north, from Gallia to Vinton. They packed up and they left. And the children went with them. Gary Siders Sr. and Christina Siders, the grandparents, were the only members of this household actively receiving state benefits at the time of the arrest. They were known to government systems. They were interacting with those systems on a regular basis. And yet the 16 children living under the same roof were completely invisible to those same systems. The elder adults existed on paper. The children did not. The family moved at least 5 times over the years. Every move bought them more time. Every new county was a clean slate. Every new address put more distance between those children and anyone who might begin to ask questions. And the whole time, Gary Siders Jr. was out there, buying scratch tickets, delivering food, existing in the community as an ordinary person. While behind the door of each property they moved through, 16 children were growing older in a world that did not officially know they were there. The oldest child spent 18 years in that closed world, their entire existence. And the youngest, just 20 months old, had already been there long enough that investigators described what they found as deeply, profoundly abnormal. That is not a story that started with one bad decision. That is a story that was constructed deliberately, maintained consistently, and protected through relentless geographic movement for nearly 2 decades. And the system, the school system, the medical system, the child welfare system, walked past every property they ever lived in. This case is heading to a grand jury. More charges are coming. The forensic investigation of seized electronic devices is ongoing. The permanent custody proceedings are building toward hearings that will determine whether any of these 4 adults ever have legal contact with these children again. The Computer Crimes Unit is still working. The birth certificate recovery process is still ongoing. The full scope of what happened inside every property this family ever occupied is still being assembled by investigators who describe this case publicly as expanding, not shrinking, with every passing week. Every new document that surfaces makes the picture darker. Every record that emerges adds another layer to a story that is still not fully visible even to the people investigating it. And in our next video on Darkness of Beneath Crimes, we are going to take a deep look at the one specific detail in this case that every major outlet has mentioned exactly once and then quietly moved on from. A detail buried inside the official investigation documents that raises questions about this family that go far beyond the 4 walls of Ohmer Road. Subscribe right now so you do not miss it when it drops. Here is what we know for certain. 16 children were hidden. 4 adults kept them hidden. At least 5 properties across 2 Ohio counties carried the physical evidence of what was happening behind those closed doors. 12 by 12-foot room. 68 combined felony charges. 1 child airlifted in critical condition. An 18-year-old who could not write their own name. A prosecutor pursuing permanent custody within weeks of removal. A computer crimes unit forensically analyzing every electronic device found in that house. And all of it, every single development in this case, cracked open not because of a welfare report, not because of a school, not because of a doctor. It cracked open because of 4 incidents of public indecency across 9 days in May. 9 days. That is the margin between those children being found and those children disappearing for another decade. The children are out of that house now. But out of that house is not healed. Out of that house is not justice. Out of that house is not finished. Who else had knowledge of this situation during the years the family was moving through Gallia County? What will the grand jury determine when it convenes and begins hearing the full scope of evidence? What exactly is on those electronic devices, and what additional charges will that evidence generate? What does permanent custody actually mean for 16 children who have never experienced a single day of what most people would call a normal life? Those answers are still coming. And every time they surface, darkness of beneath crimes will be here. Every documented fact, every court filing, every layer that gets pulled back on this case. If this story affected you, and it should have, like this video right now, share it with someone who needs to know about this case. Every person who watches this video is one more person who refuses to let 16 children become a footnote in a news cycle that moved on too fast. And drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think the system failed these children at every level? Do you think there are people beyond these 4 adults who had knowledge and said nothing? Tell me, because that conversation matters. And this community is where it happens. Subscribe to Darkness of Beneath Crimes, because we do not stop at the headline. We do not stop at the surface. We follow this all the way down. And this case, as Prosecutor William Archer himself said in a public meeting on the record, has a life of its own. It is far from over.